I would say that they may be a little bit, I don't know, utilizing the system to discredit him and his administration, what they are trying to do, and sort of like, tie his.
This is like if this was true, by the way, this would be like a coordinated effort by the judicial to discredit the president. Like, this would be a fucking insane, like the biggest U.S. scandal maybe in American history, other than like the fucking Civil War. There's no evidence for this at all. This is like totally baseless. And she doesn't even know anything about the case. It feels like every conservative is bad faith. Why do you think that is? If you want to see more content like this, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel and follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Rinyald. And if you disagree with anything in the video, make sure you join the Discord and we can have a chat sometime.
What's up? Sorry, Sam. You've been put on hold, Sam. What's up, Rinyald?
Yo, bad timing?
No. This is great timing.
Okay. I'm using my shitty mic, so...
okay. No, you're good. So this is good timing. Like, as in, I don't mind taking a break to read this or whatever. But just I should have reached out to you earlier because the reason I just want to talk to you is because I was debating. It was not a super hardcore debate, but having a conversation with a girl who was on Jubilee relatively recently about like Trump and immigration, because like and just Trump generally, but we started with immigration. That was what most of the conversation was about, because that's what she talked to Mehdi Hassan about. And I was just I was gonna ask for like what the most important things to mention were. I think I mean, you can go back and watch it if you want to later. I think I mentioned sort of the things you would think are the most important. You might not think I maybe emphasize them enough or whatever. But the things I mentioned, obviously, it's like we had Trump deporting people under the AAA. These people weren't even notified that they were being deported under the AAA initially. They were clearly being like, loaded on the planes as fast as possible. And then the Supreme Court ruled that in the future, like, you have to give these people more due process. And then like a few months later, in that other case, the WMMV Trump or whatever, they ruled that, Trump had essentially not followed through, that he hadn't actually given them effective due process because they didn't have enough time to make habeas claims and things like that.
Yep.
I know you talked to, I remember you saying like to Destiny, like this was like as like the AA stuff is like as bad as or like potentially like as bad as like the Jan 6 stuff even. So I don't know.
I don't know if I'd say as bad, but it's close. Just in the, not in the sense of like the effect, because I think the effect of J6 is still probably worse, but like the blatant callous, disrespect for our system, I think is on level with J6. Yeah.
I don't know. So in the future, I guess, is there anything else I should like heavily emphasize or whatever?
How do you think the debate went?
I think it went pretty well. I mean, it wasn't like a super heated debate or anything. Like she, I mean, it was a. I started getting a little more frustrated at the end a little bit because we got on like I asked her eventually just like what were the big things that like pushed you towards Trump and not voting for Kamala, because we did that thing that happens with a lot of not hardcore, super hardcore MAGA people, where I'm like, can't we just like agree this is like a little bad? And she's like, well, I don't support everything that Trump did or whatever. So I'm okay with saying this is bad. And I don't know the details of that, but like if it is true, like again, I don't support everything Trump does. But and she was like, well, I think the way Kamala got in, it was a little weird. And I was like, okay, well, first the first thing I asked was there anyone who could have won the Democratic primary that would have voted for? She was like, no. Okay, and then secondly, I was like, don't you think it's like a little weird that Trump organized false electoral electors and tried to get the election overturned?
Oh my god, non-fun, my god.
I know, but I was more, I guess, getting more frustrated at that point. But the other stuff was pretty respectful. It was just, I think it went well. Like I think I clearly made the better points in that debate. I think anyone really could see that. I don't think there was any point I really lost on at all. But
I mean, it sucks because I don't want to sound like dialogue tree or whatever, but it really does just depend on like what claim they're actually making. Because if they're saying like, okay, we need to get all these illegal immigrants out because it's hurting the economy, then there's like, I'm sure the arguments on that, where it's like what actual particularized harm are we seeing on the economy other than like local taxes going up higher to fund schools by like a fraction of a percent, like that's the kind of effect that we'd be seeing. And then we'd have to spend like millions of dollars in order to get everybody out. Or like, is it just because, we have to enforce the law? That's when, the AEA comes in, where it's
Obviously,
like,
yeah.
okay, we're breaking the law to get these deportations done. So that seems pretty crazy to, rule of law, except for us. Um, but I think, like, in most conversations, I think most of the, like, with immigration, it seems like most of the question is just like, what do you think is actually happening? Like you just
Mhm.
making sure that, like, because you'll get answers, like, if you're talking to a further right person, you'll be like, oh, there's demographic shift, white replacement, yada yada yada,
Yeah.
and at that point, it's just like, okay, like, you could honestly probably just meme your way through that conversation and still come out looking better.
Mhm.
And then, like, but if it's just like an economic argument, I mean, you can kind of bullshit your way through that, especially since you have a sturdier foundation with econ, so that's a lot easier. And then, yeah, I mean, if it's just like the damn illegals, that kind of thing, I think the AA is the way to go. It just depends on, like, what you're actually there to talk
Sure.
about, and if a MAGA person isn't willing to bite like the Andrew, like bite the Andrew Wilson bullets, then yeah, I think the AEA um and just, like, honestly, I think it's an effective thing to just point out the cost of deportation. Like, it's
Yeah,
expensive
yeah,
as
sure.
fuck. Um,
I should remember that the talking point or whatever. I don't think I mentioned that like the big beautiful bill makes like ICE funding, like which is just one part of border enforcement, just one part of the Department of Homeland Security. Like
mhm.
it's like more funding than like every military except for like China. It's like it's just crazy. It's like
Yeah. Yeah, I think again, it also super depends, because if you say, like, oh, it's going to cost a bunch, and you say that to, like, Andrew Wilson, he's going to be like, well, I don't care,
mhm.
so that's not going to be anything there. But yeah, I don't know. The problem is that, like, arguing this stuff with MAGA is super super depending on, like, what branch you're talking to. But it's also like, man, I don't even know at this point, because the kind of conversations that I have on TikTok are, like, the most brain rot in the world. So, like,
Mhm.
I don't even know what theoretically tracks in like actually half serious communities, because I never have any of those real conversations.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think it's worth I actually don't know. So has the like actual AA proclamation itself like been substantially challenged? I know like it's controversial whether like that's even subject to judicial review. So I don't actually know the current status of that. I presume you
So
know
I
more.
think that's still being litigated in WMM. I haven't
Hmm.
updated myself on that case in a while,
Sure.
so I actually don't know what the status is. I mean, we can probably make an argument outside of legality against the proclamation of the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
AAA, just in the sense that, like, relies on predatory incursion. Predatory incursion usually has a top-down directive. How do you have a top-down directive from Maduro in Venezuela to, like, a street gang? That's not really how street gangs work.
Mhm.
Like, you can't have. There's not, like, the CEO of Tren de Aragua. You can't really,
Yeah,
like, you can't really coordinate with that many individual actors, and there's no evidence of coordination. So, I mean, like, even just on that grounds, whether or not he
obviously,
has
yeah,
the
yeah.
power to proclaim it, like, this is just, it's just, like, even if we say that he has the power to proclaim it, which he probably does, like, all of the facts of the matter here are just, like, dog shit. Even if it
Right.
was legal, it's absolutely. I don't know whether or not it's legal. I'm not a lawyer.
Mhm.
All right, ask Pisco or something. I think I did ask Pisco, and he said it was probably illegal, but obviously he's going to say that. Yeah, I don't know. I plan on walking into doing more reading, because I've just been kind of, like, content slopping for the past little bit. But um, yeah, I'll I'll take a look at where that case is at now, and I'll let you
Sure.
know.
I mean, I mean, I'm sure I could find out as well, but yeah, I was just
Well,
curious.
yeah,
Yeah, but yeah, um, yeah, you can watch that conversation later if you want to, and tell me how you think I did. But yeah, have you really been
I
content
probably
slopping
will.
recently? I think I like your content.
Oh my
It's really
god.
pretty.
I mean, it's fun, but it's like, not like, when I say content slopping, I mean, like, I haven't had actually real engagement on any of my things since probably that one guy I talked for like 2 hours with. So like I've just been memeing throughout a
Yeah,
lot of these
okay.
conversations.
Sure. Yeah.
Because like, when you're met with what did the one dude say? I heard another guy. Do you remember when we were on? I think it was the first Raging Tomato panel I went on, with Pisco and Wick, and
Yep.
the Trippy brought up the 3 impeachments.
Yeah.
I saw there was another guy that said the 3 impeachment thing. I was like, what the fuck is happening? I found another independent guy that said that.
No, that's incredible. Oh my god.
So like when you're being met with that, it's kind of hard to get into like the legal details of whether or not Donald Trump had the statutory authority to declare a predatory incursion whenever he's like, well, when Donald Trump gets impeached 3 times for Russian collusion and now they're finding burn bags, it's like, what are we even talking about anymore,
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's cool. Thanks for
But yeah.
informing me. I gotta get back to what I was reading.
How are you feeling? You've been live for like 3 days, haven't you?
Yeah, 99 hours, 24 minutes as of now. So yeah. I mean, I sleep and everything, so pretty good. Not substantially.
So, I mean, like I go live for 4 hours, and I feel like doing some unspeakable things afterwards.
In some ways, it's like almost it's almost easier for me to do like subathon things because like there's it's almost like there's no pressure to like make like the sort of maximum content like all the time or whatever. Like I don't feel bad just like in the morning, just like playing a fucking game and like eating shit.
Oh yeah.
Well, there's like a video that I'm like maybe half reacting to sometimes because it's just like, that's
right. Yeah. I've been on here for 3 days. Cut me some slack. Yeah.
Right. It's like, well, I gotta stream my whole life to you guys. Like, I hate to break it to you. What I do in the morning is like read whatever Substack articles came out that day, and play games while I eat breakfast. Like, it's not that crazy, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I wish I had, I was more of a beacon of knowledge. But the problem is that like when you're talking to
Not a warm meal, but I didn't have a real meal. I had a peanut butter jelly sandwich.
Like having the strongest argument.
Might make another one later.
Having the strongest argument against mass deportation when you're like walking into the preschool to have the actual conversation. It's like, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
He just wants to play with blocks. I don't know.
I guess to start off today, just shout yourself out a bit. Tell us who you are. Where people can find you. I know you got your show on Rumble.
Yeah, okay, so I can be found in multiple places, but I kind of have like 2 projects going on. The first one and the biggest one, it's my Rumble show, but I also stream on multiple platforms. I also stream on YouTube, Twitch, and my X account. But the greatest interaction I get is through Rumble, and that is the Culture-Rama stream. And I stream every Tuesdays and Thursdays, and occasionally I stream on the weekends, like Saturdays, and do like a video game stream. It's more laid back, and it's pretty fun. It's more of like a right-leaning, more right libertarian actually type of stream. I talk about politics and news and mostly culture. I do have my logo here. It's the atom right here, so atomic. I kind of have like a 1950s vibe. And so yeah, that's the Culture-Rama stream. So I do primarily talk about politics and culture. And then I also have a Substack actually that I'm trying to grow. It's called the Dialectic Project. And that actually is older than Culture-Rama. And it is just my Substack. I write and I occasionally do podcasts on there when I have the time. And the Dialectic Project, it's a little bit more, I would say, esoteric. I talk about more esoteric topics like psychology and culture as well. But that is just the Dialectic Project. But Culture-Rama is the bigger one. So that's where I'm at right now.
Oh yeah. So like, obviously I first found you through Jubilee. I've seen a little bit of your other content, but I do I think probably the place I want to start out. Obviously, you talked to Mediasan on about immigration was the topic you went up on. I think the thing you said to him was essentially like he said like immigrants overall.
She's feeling polka dot today. Yeah, true.
Are benefit to America, and you sat down and like the first thing he said is essentially does Mediasan care about helping immigrants more, or does he care about helping Americans more? I guess I do also want to talk about more Trump in general. Like I told you that in DMs as well, but I think that's sort of representative of a lot of the zero sum, I would say, thinking in that I think drives Trump's policy sometimes. And to be fair, I think I can drive some sort of even leftist populist policy. So I guess like I would just be curious, like, do you think it's possible that like so at least some immigrants are essentially benefits to both Americans, even if the immigrant benefits themselves as well? Obviously, like there's mutual gains there.
Right, absolutely. And that was sort of what I was trying to get at with that debate. You see, that's why I brought up the conversation about me coming from, my parents came as immigrants and then assimilated later on. So, I wanted to get off the bat in that debate saying that I'm not opposed to the concept whatsoever, especially someone that has benefited from people that came into the United States. And granted, I mean, a lot of people benefit from it, and I have no doubt that in the future, and I have no qualms in the future with people coming into this country, and, benefiting our country and our economy. The only issue I take with it, and I think that right now we are at a situation culturally where, and also economically, you could argue also, where I just don't think it's sustainable right now. And so I wanted to have that conversation with him. Now, my mistake was coming in and assuming that I could, granted, I didn't know Mehdi Hassan would be the guy to debate. I just applied. People encouraged me to apply. They said, you should do it. It'll be fun. And I'm like, okay. Because I have this little stream and people think like I'm great at debate. I suck. I think I had like 2 public debates ever. And one of them, I couldn't get a word in edgewise. I'm really soft-spoken. I'm like kind of conflict aversive in a weird way. I am, and I'm not. So I don't know. But people encouraged me to apply. I applied and I was really excited. And without going into like too much details of how the episode was set up, I was sort of like caught off guard with the questions. And also,
I have no idea where the term polka dot comes from, by the way. I know that I'm reading chat. I just have nothing to add to this conversation.
On himself, and he is obviously a prolific speaker, debater, and he definitely knows what he's talking about. And so, I came in with whatever knowledge I had, and just like whatever knowledge I have personally, and even though sometimes there are anecdotally, I did do my research on some of the immigration stats.
Is that non-fun? No.
That I spoke about in the show and some of the benefits they receive right now. That isn't, I would say, the most sustainable financially for a lot of Americans. And at the end of the day, if you're going to represent a nation or your peoples of a nation as a president or an administration or a public official, my idea is that you should represent the people of the country first. And he tried to paint the debate or the topic to sort of show like I was opposed to immigrants in general, which is just simply not the case. Sure. So that's why I tried to bring up like my background and my history, but I was not, I'm a really like, not to call Mehdi Hassan all in bad faith, but I'm like such a, I want to say like good faith debater. I try to be, I'm just really like, faith. I want to have a conversation as opposed to just like rhetorical debate, I guess you could say. So I was going to have a conversation. I was like cut to the knees and I deserved it because I wasn't like prepared to, obviously debate a professional. But that was sort of like how the episode set up and it was fun anyway. I'm glad I did it. But
I haven't seen, by the way, I didn't watch the Mehdi Hassan Jubilee thing because I just thought it was going to be like, I can't watch the Jubilee things. It's just slop. Like, I think the format is just really, 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 really not great. I understand that it has its place, and that's fine. Especially the Mehdi Hassan episode. Holy fuck, the clips I saw from that was really not making me want to watch that episode. So I didn't see her talk to Mehdi, by the way.
But yeah, that's sort of where I'm coming from in regards to that.
Right. I mean, I definitely think, like if you watch a debate like Mehdi Hassan, like did, interrupt you, like, obviously I'm gonna agree with Mehdi Hassan on most things, and like, but I do think like, when you're in an environment like that, like Mehdi Hassan is like going there to win, he's going there to get viral clips. Not that there aren't also people on the other side trying to do that.
Of course, yeah.
And also, of course, conservatives do the same thing when they're on Jubilee surrounded, but when they're actually, when they're being the ones surrounded. But I do think like, Mehdi Hassan is kind of trying to win on rhetoric.
Telling me Charlie Kirk was clip farming?
So I guess,
I don't
like,
buy it.
Some of the, initial issues like I would have. So I kind of, to some extent, I agree. Like the, government should try to take care of like, quote unquote, like our people first, right? Like I think the government has a much bigger, certainly there's much bigger responsibility to its citizens than to any like, non-citizens. So I do think like part of that responsibility though is just ensuring, I guess, like generally, generally we want, everyone's lives to be better. We want people to some extent like freedom protected, right? Like we do want people to have the freedom to hire, who they want to hire, and like in some circumstances, like it seems weird that doesn't, if I want to hire some foreign laborers, I'm simply prevented from doing so in some cases. We simply like put a limit on business owners' ability to do that. And I would say that that tends to like have instrumental harms in that, like when businesses are prevented from hiring a sort of what I would say is like the efficient amount of labor, like you are going to end up negatively affecting consumers. You are going to end up negatively affecting the economy as a whole. There seem to be even like just broader sort of like spillover benefits from immigration. For example, like when tech companies hire, like H-1B workers, which are skilled workers, so maybe a lot of people have less problem with that. Not only that's a benefit to the immigrant, not only does it benefit the company hiring them, not only does it benefit like some of the consumers of the whoever is using the product those tech companies produce, but just like overall, when you have a lot of very smart people in one area, concentrated in one area, that's what we call clustering effects, where like companies will set up new investment. They'll do more investment than they otherwise would have, simply because there's a bunch of smart people in one area. They can set up their company there and employ those smart workers. So I guess maybe we can get into more of the specifics, but like because of those effects, I generally view immigration as like
dab on the haters, do it for the vine. I'm good.
Pretty good thing for the economy. I think even on the fiscal level, because they increase the working age population generally, and because they don't collect many welfare benefits. I don't know exactly what stats you have, but I think a lot of the stats are controversial. To be fair, on both sides of that issue.
I mean That's a valid point. I completely understand that. And, there's a conversation to be had about the balance of immigration or immigrant labor versus non-immigrant labor and how we can, sort of traverse or navigate through the circumstances we're in economically. And as someone, and all of us, I'm sure you have at some point have been impacted by unemployment and have suffered through that. And especially when I was navigating through that the last like year, I was kind of looking into some of the, like, for instance, take H-1B workers. I think that originally that concept is actually a good one. I have no issue with the H-1B visa program. But when I looked into how many of H-1B visa, because I think originally the standard, I might get numbers wrong with the original, they wanted like only 70,000 annually, but that number has just like exploded to, I mean, I can look it up now, but I don't want to like get muddled in numbers, but it exploded like to several 100,000 of H-1B workers when the original program was, much more limited. And then additionally, when you go in the database and you look at who's obtaining these visas, they're all, it's supposed to be for skilled labor.
That wasn't a request, it was a demand. Okay.
But and you can look it up online. I mean, there was stuff for like gas station worker, for dog walker, for just like cashier, grocery store cashier, and these are jobs that when you look at the unemployability for younger people in Generation Z specifically today, which I'm more focused on what Generation Z is experiencing, and them struggling particularly out of college to get jobs, not only in their field but also during college to even like support themselves is quite challenging. And a lot of us, and I do also have that bootstrap mentality too, like pick yourselves up by a bootstrap, get a job anyway. But it's not the same today as it was previously. Obviously, it's always challenging, but it's I would say it's reaching at a level right now because we are and living in an interdependent world right now, in a globalized system and globalized world with globalized communication systems. Even though there's a lot of benefits to that, one of the main negatives is that we do have to compete sort of with the rest of the world. And being a first world nation like the United States, we are forced to do that. And it's just unfair for the people that have come here already have like you could say like multiple generations of families here or trying to start a life here that have adequately assimilated as well and are trying their best to have a life here. But it's just not fair for our national peoples right now when we have to consistently, compete with the rest of the world. And so that's what particularly irked me about the H-1B visa program, because again, like on the onset, I don't mind that program at all. Anyway, we can like talk about the specifics of immigration and certain programs, but yeah, that's where I'm like kind of at right now in terms of like of economics, and then you bring up like the fiscal aspect of it, and what I kind of want to get back is I think that right now, not just with conservative movement, but I think in American politics as a whole, we are kind of like reached a position where we have to question like, and you see a lot of right wingers say this talking point, but I think it's legitimate to consider is, are we just an economic zone or are we a nation? And I'm still, I think that's a really unique question because the United States does have sort of like this unique history, and that we don't have like, I mean, some would disagree with me with this, but we don't have like a blend soil concept like other countries do, right? But I also think it's important that if we are going to compete with the rest of the country, should we define ourselves as a national peoples? And if so, are we going to benefit Americans or not? So we have to like consider our perception of what the country is.
So I guess, a few things there. I mean, I think we have seen, for example, like the data I've seen suggests like unemployment for a lot of like workers out of colleges is like, higher now. But, a lot of it is like more recent developments, which a lot of that is, probably has to do generally with like certain macro effects, right? A lot of some of it's gonna have to do with monetary policies, and some of it's gonna have to do with,
of course,
with AI potentially replacing jobs in some sectors, right? So, I would say like for one, we didn't necessarily see like, during the big wave of illegal immigration or whatever, like unemployment increased significantly for people under for even college graduates or just in general. Like we had, during the high immigration wave, we had like pretty historically low unemployment. I think if you want to actually like look into like the causal, sort of actual causal analysis, right? Because as I mentioned, in any given time period, there's going to be 100 different factors that are going to influence wages, that are going to influence employment in this area. So if from my understanding of the evidence, like most of the like actual studies that try to do things like, there's two very similar cities, one got a lot of immigration and one didn't, and like there's various methods we can like infer the effects of immigration from that. Immigrants don't really seem to reduce net employment, right? Because they might, there's no lump of labor. There's not a set amount of work to do in the day. There's not a fixed pie. So when an immigrant comes here, they're not necessarily just, taking away from output of other people, because they're also contributing to the output of the country. They're contributing their labor. They're producing products that would otherwise not have been produced, and those products are consumed by people who maybe otherwise would not have been able to consume them. And especially with H-1B workers, we have some reason to believe that in some cases immigrants are what we call like complements rather than substitutes. So with some businesses, it is going to be like I can either hire a native-born worker or a foreign-born worker. But in some cases, we actually see like, for example, companies that win more H-1B lotteries offshore less. So them being able to hire more immigrants means they actually, offshore less often, meaning they hire more Americans here. So in that case, like workers can actually be complements for certain companies. And, tying into that in the globalized world, we, I think we have, we do it to some extent have to compete with other nations, right? Now, I think, and this is another topic, and I'm sure we can talk about this too. Like, generally, like trade and specialization has a lot of benefits, and I think globalization is good for all those reasons. But if we want to compete with the rest of the world, like I agree, for example, we should be competing with China in, research capabilities and things like that.
Sure.
China just is always going to have like a higher pool of skilled workers because their population is very high. If the U.S. wants a similar number of skilled workers, we're going to have to import some. And I think it's overwhelmingly.
Fuck, I feel bad. I'm not like reacting, but I mean, non-fun's cooking. I don't know what to say. I believed in you the whole time.
when the U.S. imports skilled workers, let's say even if they have like some marginal effect on unemployment, if nothing else, just because a lot of immigrants are entrepreneurs, a lot of immigrants, especially the skilled immigrants, make patents even in areas that are relevant for national security. It's not like H-1B workers are sometimes prevented from working in certain national security sectors, but indirectly via a lot of innovation in the tech sector help with national security. Or even, for example, the reason like TSMC, the company that makes chips or whatever, is like founded in Taiwan, is because I think that, their founder was an immigrant to America, but like he didn't end up staying here, right? If we create an environment where a lot of these good workers stay here, you're going to see more companies founded here and, doing things that are probably beneficial for national security. And I think, so when it comes to like the, fiscal side and I also do want to add actually I'll comment on the fiscal things first. So the evidence of the fiscal stuff, like, there are controversial things on both sides. I think the better evidence is that immigrants, at least over the longer run, tend to be fiscal positives, right? Like the CBO even estimated the immigration surge under Biden would actually reduce the deficit by like $900 billion over the next 10 years or whatever, because they tend to be fiscal positives, at least in the long run. And I think you're right in that, like, so I think what makes someone American is not like their skin tone, is not blood and soil or any of that stuff. Typically, it's going to be it's going to be some your liberal values essentially, right? It's going to be some type of American values.
True.
And to some extent, we might see problems with assimilation today. I don't deny that, like, those can exist, but I think most of the data still shows the people that live here, their children tend to assimilate. Like,
fuck, this is just a talking point that I like to run, but like also keep in mind that any illiberal values that they'll point out about an illegal immigrant are probably going to apply tenfold to Donald Trump. Just saying.
Almost entirely within 3 generations, and I think most of the sort of negatives with assimilation could be helped if we expanded legal immigration to an extent. But I do want to just add, and this is beyond the economics, something that I think is relevant is that certainly the manner in which Trump is trying to achieve a lot of these goals, right? Like, just say that it was the case that deportations would slightly reduce unemployment for college-educated men. I think when you see Trump, invoking the Alien Enemies Act in order to summarily deport people, like there are people he absolutely did not give due process to. Like, he tried to deport people under the Alien Enemies Act, and they were detained before the proclamation for the Alien Enemies Act was even made public. They were rushed onto planes. They were deported. Arguably, the one judge did find probable cause holding contempt. I'm not going to comment on whether that it was actually necessarily contempt, but it is absolutely true. Trump tries to deport people as quick as possible, and the Supreme Court then ruled, saying, "Hey, in the future, you have to give people more due process." And then, the Supreme Court then later ruled, just a few months, 2 months later, like Trump had actually failed to actually provide people who were deported under the Alien Enemies Act due process. He had failed to provide, give them enough time to seek habeas claims. And I think a lot of those people ended up going to Sakat, where torture is not uncommon. And I think that's just a horrible, evil thing to do, even if it marginally helped U.S.-born workers a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. There's a lot of points brought there, so excuse me if I tried to answer some of it there. But well, the broader point that you brought up that I want to touch on is that, because you did mention the benefits that could accrue after expanding immigration, for instance, or retaining immigration, which, like I said, I can recognize, and I certainly see that. I think, though, that paired with a lot of other things being brought up, like you acutely stated, AI is another one I didn't even consider right away. There's a lot of these other impacts, I think, that are affecting the Americans in getting jobs. And I mean, immigration is certainly a part of that. And even though it can supplement some businesses or some organizations, I think it's a matter of perspective on what the country is and who we should benefit. And that is not to say that I don't see the benefits of immigration. I think, though, we're at a point right now in our country where we need to be focusing on things that matter first. For instance, like with the homeless issue, I live near Seattle. And it's quite a problem up here. It's a problem in any major coastal city. And I don't know about Middle America. I think it's going to impact them a little bit too. But that's like one major example. And there's like a lot of issues that are contributing just for the homeless epidemic in general. But I think we need to address certain problems that we are facing here, and that's like that's a major one of them. I mean, a lot of people, and since 2008, like we have made up strides in our economy and in the housing market, but we are now reaching, I think, especially in the housing market, we are reaching lows, particularly once again for the coming generation, which is Generation Z, and coming into adulthood and finding it difficult for them to even obtain property or houses or even rentals for that matter. And I think that's something that we should try to focus on first, and so we can ensure that the nation's generation and coming generation, including Generation Alpha, will be stable enough to sort of like maintain the country's integrity. And when I say that, I mean like as a national people and as an economy. Diversification and multiculturalism, although I'm not like principally opposed to, there is evidence to suggest that when you have when it's too diverse, when you have too many clashing cultures in a setting, it does, for instance, drastically impede the replacement birth rate or the total fertility rate of that host peoples. And it doesn't just happen in the U.S. I mean, it happens in other countries. I believe we've seen in other countries as well, particularly in Europe. And so with that as a possibility happening in the U.S., especially with their total fertility rate declining. Although I don't think multiculturalism is the sole reason for that, I think it's a big reason for that. And so, I think that addressing these issues, obviously multifarious, there's not like one issue. And I don't like to focus on immigration as like the issue in resolving all these problems, but I think it's like one of the more loudest issues that if we try to resolve, we can. It's sort of like, doing an elimination diet. You don't really know like what's affecting your body, but if you eliminate what you think is like the biggest contributor, you eliminate that, and then you start to see the other symptoms that still start to manifest in your body, and then you try to eliminate from there. So that's sort of like what I'm trying to approach this as, because the nation is representative of individual. It's a conglomeration of individuals, and so we should like try to address it as such. So that's sort of where I'm coming from on that. But like I said, not to say that immigration doesn't have its benefits. I just think that there's a way in which we can address it that can benefit everyone where they're at.
Sure, I do want you to I do want to comment on that, but I also just want you to like briefly comment on do you agree that like there were I think about like two.
I assume the opposite is true, that when you bring brown people, birth rates increase among populations. I have no fucking idea. I haven't even been convinced as to like why we should really care about declining birth rates in certain demographics. I don't know if I really care. 200
people deported, in which the Supreme Court later ruled that in the future, there were AAA detainees, and the Supreme Court in JGG v. Trump said essentially that, like, in the future you have to give people more due process. And then do you agree that later, I think like 2 months later, there's another case, I think it's WMM v. Trump, the Supreme Court said you did not comply fully with our last order, you did not give people enough time to seek habeas relief to avoid deportation.
Sure. Yeah. No. I mean, due process is one of the main tenets of the principles of this country. And I have like followed some of those cases. I think that I didn't look at like the specifics of the case that you're referring to, but I think that if he is obviously like infringing upon that, needs to be looked into. I'm not opposed to deportations, obviously, but I would want it to be done in like in a efficient but yet legal manner.
Okay. I mean, so like if it was the case, which I'm not necessarily alleging here because I don't know the full details about like this specific thing. Although I do think what Trump did, even if this wasn't true, is bad enough.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they're disproportionately young, but I don't think they're talking about birth rates. I think she's talking about birth rates of like established Americans. I don't know how to calculate that group. My guess is it's probably something racial, but I'm not gonna make that call.
Would you agree, like, if it was the case that like Trump sent planes full of deportees, to El Salvador after?
I need to do that. I need to do that way more. Like, okay, let's just assume this is true for the sake of the conversation, so I can affirm you're not a bad faith hack. I need to do that way more.
The judge had ordered him not to. Like, do you think that'd be disqualifying, like, for him as president? Like, do you think that'd be
disqualifying is bold?
I would have to. I hate to be that guy, but I would have to like look at the case specifically because there is reason to believe why they would want to, if not outright prevent Trump, slow the process of that happening. And I mean, I'm not here to say that like all judges are completely impartial. That is their job, but it's impossible for any person to be impartial. So I would have to look at that. But if it was, if I looked at it and it seemed like, he is overstepping his bounds, and believe me, I'm first to say when Trump is able to do that with the whole burning flag thing, I'm completely opposed to. I think it's silly what they're trying to push. So like many times, Trump, I have spoken about on my show, is always guilty of this, but I'd have to look at the case specifically. But if it
a direct attack on the First Amendment, that's just, I think that's like kind of silly. Yeah, I don't know about that, guys. I think that's a little silly. Okay.
It was shown to be the case, I would absolutely be against it. Yeah.
Okay, well, not just be against it. Like, I mean, you should be against what he has already been, and I think, to be fair, to some extent, you are. What he has already, what has already been ruled on, which is that, not necessarily that he like totally that he broke a judge's order, but that he was ordered to give people due process for Alien Enemies Act deportations, and then later on, the Supreme Court said you did not effectively follow through that order because he only gave people like less than 24 hours to file habeas claims, and a lot of these immigrants, some of them can't even like fully speak English, so they can't read some of the English documents that they've been giving them. They were made it difficult to contact the lawyers. The Supreme Court has already said that like he failed in that obligation. That's something that's really bad, and I think you should be against. Like, if it was the case that not only did he do that, which the Supreme Court has already said he did that, but what Judge Borisberg or whatever said, which is that Trump should actually be held in contempt for flying planes with deportees who were ordered to not be taken off or to not be deported. He did it anyway. Would that be, in your view, something that would make him like a net bad president, or like something worth potentially impeaching him over, or like how bad do you view that essentially?
Potentially impeaching him over, I don't know. The thing is that what's with all these legal systems, and I'm not a legal scholar by any means, so I'm not going to assert that, but with the legal systems that are put in place, I can easily see once again, and this is extremely divisive because I can understand why some people, especially like even like neoconservatives, would say that he is kind of overstepping his bounds, and he is a very inflammatory, incendiary president and administration, especially with what they're doing. A lot of the things that they're doing is you could even say avant-garde, at least for what modern presidencies look like. But if with the legal systems that are put in place, and many oftentimes I'd have to look at the case, like I said, with the whole flag burning situation. I thought that was completely absurd. So I can easily see the administration overstepping their bounds. And if that's what they did, despite them thinking about the benefit.
Isn't that kind of crazy that that's granted though? Like, yeah, probably. I mean, like, it's not shocking to me that Donald Trump would overstep his power as president. That's the granted? You're granting that? Really? What? Oh, and you still support him? Bro.
Of the country, but if they are overstepping their bound, especially constitutionally, that's a major problem, and I'd be completely opposed to. But at the same time, I also wouldn't discredit the notion, and I don't want to discredit the notion that all these proceedings are done are done like completely fairly, or even with non-bias.
And also notice too that she's like, she doesn't know anything about the case, but she's already alleging bias. Why? Like, I guess plausible deniability, I guess, but like, it would never be like if there's like a legal conclusion that I probably don't agree with, right? It's never going to be my and it's a case that I don't know a lot about. Like, let's say, like, it's a case on Biden. I'm never going to say like, oh, well, there's a lot of activist judges, so you never know. Like, that's never going to be my base assumption. Holy shit. I have a racism test for you, Rin. Okay. Okay.
In the legal system, I don't think that's possible, and I think a lot of people, and with the history of Trump's presidency is concerned, that I would say that they may be a little bit. I don't know, utilizing the system to discredit him and his administration, what they are trying to do, and sort of like, tie his.
This is like if this was true, by the way, this would be like a coordinated effort by the judicial to discredit the president. Like, this would be a fucking insane, like the biggest U.S. scandal maybe in American history, other than like the fucking Civil War. There's no evidence for this at all. This is like totally baseless. And she doesn't even know anything about the case. And she's like, yeah, it's possible that there's like a giant conspiracy in the judicial to make the executive look bad. I mean, like, that's always a possibility. I don't know. What?
His hands. But again, I would have to like look at it specifically. But if it was, and that's challenging because I'm not an expert anyway, so I'd have to like rely on what the experts say, right?
I'm not a legal expert.
You know what the experts said? There's a panel of experts. Button 1, unalive a million white people. 2, unalive a million black people. After you push it, everyone will know what you did. You only push 1. I don't know. I don't care. Net utility, baby. I mean, like, they're probably an argument to kill the white people, probably. I don't know, like kill the white people and then give reparations to their families. I don't know.
But I just want to be clear, to whatever extent like you think the justice system was like weaponizing against Trump, like this is the Supreme Court, which has many of Trump's appointees on. I forget, I think it's 3 appointees on, right?
Yeah.
Telling saying him that like after this order, AEA detainees they must receive more due process, and then a few months later, the Supreme Court saying, hey, these people that you deported, actually you did not, you failed to provide them enough time to make habeas relief claims. Like that is a insanely bad thing in my view, and I don't think that's
100K.
It's hard to say that.
Really 1 million white people or 100K black people. Oh, okay. Then it'd be the black people.
What is this? The Supreme Court, of which is majority conservative appointeers, some of which are his own appointees.
Yeah, no, that's
I guess yeah. So we can also like I know you mentioned like the multicultural thing, for example. I guess I'm curious how you draw the connection between multiculturalism and like lowering birth rates. There doesn't seem to be a clear connection to that for me.
Oh yeah, I mean there are. I did not come prepared with the studies, but I can like find them for you. But I know I've had them saved up for like previous episodes in the past. But there are there are multiple studies that have been conducted.
1 million versus
on,
100K. I would kill the 100K per people. Yeah, I would kill the whatever group is 100,000 people as opposed to 1 million people. I would kill
communities and saying how when there's like diversification over time
in this hypothetical,
that people just don't, the host nation or the host community or peoples, whatever you call it, or host ethnicity rather, they don't breed at the same levels as what they used to. Sorry, I mean, you want me like to look that up? I don't like feel comfortable coming in without like the studies on hand. But yeah, I mean,
interesting. I didn't say you had to push any buttons. Okay. All right. Okay.
Research. Yeah, there has been research done on this. I can try to find a couple here, but there has been research done about this. And what I led to when I was looking into this, in fact, I may have some of my Substack actually. Remember recent articles I could maybe look up. I'll just try to pull this up while I'm talking with you. But yeah, and it led me to think that perhaps then if that is the case, and because the total fertility rate declining now in the U.S., it could be that we are experiencing that here with our own host nation. Here, let me access my Substack. I may have a few here.
I guess I don't necessarily view it as impossible that's the case. And, like certainly there's studies that I think are like solid studies saying it. Sure. Like it could very well be the case. But I view it as a much more plausible explanation that the reason the U.S. birth rates have declined and the reason birth rates decline just generally in advanced economies is that the essentially opportunity cost of having a kid is always, almost always going to go up with like income growth, right? So like historically, kids might have had almost like negative opportunity costs because you needed kids to like work on your farm, and then at some point, kids started having some amount of opportunity costs in that if you had a kid, you're gonna have to provide for that kid, and that might mean you have to cut down on your hours at a factory job, and nowadays, having a kid is like a substantial hit to your to most people's earnings. Certainly, women, they tend to take their earnings hit, and that's actually the data I've seen suggests that women don't actually even ever recover from the earnings hit from having a child, oftentimes at least. But I think that seems to be
Good answer.
a big factor as well. And I don't think there's you could address that by giving subsidies for having children. So you could try to say, hey, if the opportunity cost of having children is really high, we're going to essentially compensate you for it. But I think that requires a lot of high taxes, a lot of redistribution, and those aren't things I'm always against. It seems to be like a much more just like pro-growth, easier policy to allow a decent amount of immigration. And I think if you had a better process, which to be fair, I don't know exactly what that
So you could do both, but
better process would look like. But I think if you had a better process that, for example, like asylum seekers a lot of times, aren't able to like,
hey, what's up, my man? I'm watching my goat. Watching my goat talk to some lady that was on Jubilee, apparently. How's it going?
homes, so they're put up in like free homes in New York or whatever in their own. And they often have areas set out all to themselves basically, and a lot of times they're not able to get jobs for like the first 90 days or something until they get work authorization. I think we have a system to let them more easily integrate in society. Like you would see a simulation in them be higher. And I think that's a much better way of addressing any issues we have with the declining birth rate.
Yeah. So there are, I pulled up a few studies here. It's interesting because you do see declining birth rates in Eastern Asian countries like South Korea and China as well. Well, China, that's because of their child policy that could be like impacted. But with South Korea specifically, you do sort of see like they are rather homogenous areas. So the question begs, like, it's not just diversity, right? I just looked up at a few stats here, and it is saying that parts of East Asia, specifically like South Korea and so forth, are becoming more diverse over time. And so being like from I would say, because East Asian cultures are typically more rigid and more homogenous, I would say, than other parts of the world. So maybe that could be like impacting them to the diversification. But I'm just like making connections here. I'm just looking at some stats.
Chilling in non-fun stream. lots of fish being saved. Yeah, no. I'm whenever I get off, I'm probably gonna send people into non-funds if I can figure out how to do it.
Do you think it's also, it could also very well be the case that because of their declining birth rate, because they experience income growth, which increases the opportunity cost of having a kid,
right,
they needed more immigration to try to address that. Like I think that is part of, like, Japan has had a relatively stagnant economy for a while, which is why they started to accept more immigration. To my understanding,
Yeah, well, I mean, there are various. I'm not saying it's just immigration and diversification. I think that's a big part of it. Another part of it, I think, also is obviously like women obtaining more education and having more independent sources of income, like you were mentioning there. And that's definitely happening in Western countries, United States and Western Europe specifically, and that's where you see the greatest impact of this. And like, I'm not opposed to women obviously having independent sources of income or going to school. What I do think is I think the answer to all of these things are obviously way more complicated than what we like to put upon. I write about this quite a bit. And the only issue is that solving this is like such a long-term project. I think that a big part of what it is, it's a conglomeration of things. But in regards to like women having independent sources of income, or people getting wealthier too, one of the main ways that we can address that, I think, is that I really think that all comes down to early childhood education. And what I'm seeing specifically in like the United States, and I can only speak for the United States alone because I was born and raised here, but I think there's like this answer is going to open up a door to a lot more questions, I think, on your part. So
sure.
So I'm going to try to explain it as easily as I can. But I think that we have been having a problem in this country where we sort of expect everyone to have, specific sources of income. And I'm not opposed to women or men getting sources of income. The only issue is that I think we're oversaturating the colleges with people where men and women don't really belong there as much as they are going now. I mean, there's a greater emphasis on like trading or trade schools for young men. Likewise, I think we could have something similar for women.
We need
the
better bad
women
protection.
Typically, if they want to have higher sources of income, they are forced to get into the academic system where I don't think a lot of people in general are inclined towards sort of like these white collar jobs. And I think oversaturating the college market, so to speak, is sort of contributing to this problem, because obviously if you go to school and you spend all this time in school, even if you get your master's or beyond, you don't want to like settle down and have kids right after that, especially if you're trying to get jobs in your field, right? And so I think this emphasis on higher education is contributing to this. And that's why, to supplement those jobs that some people don't want, we do have to get immigrants to come in and do them, right? And that's completely understandable. And but that makes other people of younger generations, like we're seeing right now, have to not even being able to find jobs in those sectors as well, the sectors that they didn't go to school for and they don't necessarily want to do all their lives, and more blue collar work. So I think we need to tailor education, and I like what and I think Sweden's doing this a little bit. They're tailoring the childhood education based on what the child is interested in, rather than universalizing it. Obviously, you need like reading and arithmetic and writing, But I think past a certain age, I think like pretty young, you can see what a child is tailored towards pretty young. I have family that works in early childhood education, and I read a few studies on this indicating similar things. And I think if we tailor education to the individual first, that we could perhaps resolve a lot of this. I think a lot of people went to college where they don't belong in college, if that makes sense. And so I think that's sort of contributing to this more in a greater impact than simply just saying it's multiculturalism, although I think multiculturalism is a part of that.
guess in a sense I can there's gonna be a little bit of agreement there. Although I'm kind of gonna view it as a as almost more evidence in my explanation because I do think like colleges probably increase human capital to some extent. There's a reason that colleges have a big wage premium. It's because to some extent they probably make you a lot more productive, they make you a lot more knowledgeable, they make your skills a lot more valuable, and that is kind of the we're much for the knowledge service-based economy. That is kind of the mechanism by which our earnings kind of got so high in the first place. So I agree. A lot of people who go to college aren't necessarily going to want to settle down and have kids immediately after that.
500,000.
That's kind of a reflection of what I'm saying, which is that as countries just get richer, as we consume more education, get better, higher skills overall, which makes incomes high for everyone, you're going to see people have less children simply because the opportunity cost of having a child is going to go up. I'm not necessarily going to disagree with you on the need for some education reform. I don't know what the correct answers are there. I will say the sort of the evidence I've seen is that U.S. schools do essentially okay compared to our developed peers. We're not doing horrible. We're certainly not doing the best. And I'm sure if you compare us to Norway, we're probably doing worse than Norway. And I don't know exactly, what issues we're going to, or how to address those issues. I will, I will kind of, reiterate that I think immigration is sort of a easier, cleaner, cheaper solution to this. We could reform education, which I don't know if that looks like I'd be relatively in support of that. And we could try to compensate people for the opportunity cost of having a child, with transfer payments and I'll try.
I hope this is what Non-Fun is getting at. The problem is that she's making a decent amount of arguments, but she's also I don't know if she's actually here to defend Trump or anything, but these are decent things that we can look at. This is not what Donald Trump is doing. Donald Trump is just trying to get the brown people out. Okay, this is not the conversations that are being being had in the White House. Stephen Miller's don't you think that there's some sort of genetic component to all of these brown people doing crimes? And he's like, yeah, get them out of here. And that's the discussion that's being had at the White House. I don't know why we're having in-depth conversations about child tax credits to address the declining birth rate. This is not what Donald Trump is talking about. But
try to do other incentives, but that's a very expensive, difficult thing to do, where it seems like immigrants, we could let in immigrants who are ready to work right now.
Also, I don't know. It's also possible that she's not here explicitly. I don't know what Non-Fun and her agreed to talk about. I don't know if this is about Trump. So I don't know if this is about her supporting Trump or if this is actual constructive. If you're there to talk about constructive solutions to certain problems. I don't know what they're here for, but just to make sure everybody knows, this is not what Donald Trump is interested in. Just to be clear.
We don't have to wait 18 years for these kids to grow up, and they don't necessarily they don't always cost us anything. Sometimes it can be a fiscal drain. I think that everyone seems to suggest that some immigrants without high school degrees can be a fiscal drain short term, but usually longer term they're not, especially when accounting for their the fact that they're going to have children who typically earn comparable to the U.S. median income, and they're typically going to be fiscal positives. And I really don't think we see super negative effects on the native population from immigration in terms of things like employment. You might see in certain sectors, if you get a large amount of immigrants in a short amount of time all going to one sector, you might see a decrease in wages. You probably would not see, and you wouldn't necessarily see an increase in unemployment overall because if you shift the supply curve right, the quantity goes up. There'll be more people employed. Although the total population will be bigger, so those go net out. You're not necessarily going to see an increase in unemployment. You could very well stay the same. It could actually very well go down if their demand for labor, employs more people than otherwise would have been employed. And I guess I think there is evidence also that deportations don't really address many of those issues. There's evidence from sort of deportations under Obama's term that communities that saw deportations during different times, which allows us to compare similar cities and everything. We actually saw decreases in employment when immigrants were deported, right? So I think there were about 500,000 total immigrants deported, and that led to an estimated 44,000 net job loss. And I think just overall the policies that Trump has to the economy, like the tariffs, even the big beautiful bill, trying to corrupt the BLS and the Federal Reserve. If you want to talk about jobs, the job number.
That's what I feel is so frustrating. The Trump supporters either A, absolutely unhinged or brainwashed, or B, you have no idea how they hold the views they do and see Trump as the answer. Yeah, true. What's the one girl who watches Ben Shapiro and Destiny that Pisco talked to on Live and Learn? That lady? Yeah. What she is saying is they always start off saying in the end all roads seem to lead to. Yeah, that's why. So that's why it's not racist. It's economic. I don't know if this person is racist. I don't know enough about her. She seems like she has her heart in the right place. She doesn't seem stupid either. I think she's just, I don't understand how, these are not the conversations that need to be having had right now, but.
Trump did not like it and fired the BLS head. I think all of those are going to have a way more negative effect on employment than conceivably deportations or immigrants could have.
Well, yeah, I mean, to go back to the fertility rate here, not to say, I think immigration reform is a good way to address it. Well, when I say good, I don't mean the most efficient. I mean the best way in terms of like actually resolving the issue. But yeah, when I mentioned like, for instance, multiculturalism and how that contributes to lower total fertility rates of a host culture, then that's like, which is a compounding effect on it. I'm not saying it's just education, just immigration, not all these things, not just women going into work. It's like all of these things impacting it. And so how I typically tend to look at it is just like mollifying some of the other aspects of it. Obviously, like education reform is going to be, and like that's why I mentioned originally when I started talking, like this is going to be potentially open up a can of worms. Is that like that specific approach will take a long time?
Yeah, honestly, I think Democrats are better at every single conservative ideal. Yeah, because I mean, like, we're the party of the actual founding principles now, which is crazy. Crazy.
Time to address it. And so that's why I'm like looking, and you mentioned like maybe like compensation for some of families that do want to have more kids. And that's idea been thrown out there. That's something to consider as well. So there's like different ways to approach it. As far as affecting or helping the total fertility rate. But I saw a study on Twitter actually saying how, and I did retweet it. I do want to pull it up because I do think it's pertinent. Okay. Where is it?
I'm pretty sure it's just white people who are under replacement level. I mean, keep in mind, people who do bring up birth rates, all right, it's not necessarily saying anything, but it's definitely a red flag argument if the argument they're making is birth rates, but it's not necessarily saying anything. So I think we need to be careful to not like instinctively just call them racist because they, exhibited a red flag argument,
Did you see the study that got floated around on Twitter? It was, here we go. Research finds no evidence that aging or declining populations harm social economic performance. On average, they perform better overall in wealth, productivity, and life expectancy. This study came up.
I haven't. I'd be curious. Is it from? There's a number of anti-immigrants. It's from where?
It's from Cornell University.
Oh, that's possible. That's a good study. I think a lot of studies on immigrants are from Center for Immigration Studies. I see people cite it. I think their information.
Yeah. They do this. Yeah. Anyway, I just saw this one from Cornell University.
Who's the author of it?
Let's see here. You want me just? I don't know if I can. Can I send you the link through?
I think there is a chat thing. Google. Yeah, there should be a in-call messaging.
Okay, let me just like drop you the link and maybe you can take a look at it. I just thought that was interesting. Like, oh, really? I didn't know. If that's the case, then that kind of like changes the narrative. Where's the chat feature on here, by the way? I'm like,
it should be in the bottom right. I don't know if you
bottom right.
I think that's where it is.
Oh, here it is. Here it is. I found it. Yeah. I just found this tweet here. But I can try to find the actual study just looking at the title, I guess, so you can like look at it in full.
Fuck.
Yeah. Hold on.
I think we're cooked, boys. Oh wait. I think we're cooked. Oh shit.
I mean, it's possible it's a good study. I'm not familiar with it, but I will say, like, I have seen, I have seen evidence of
domination.
So,
holy
sure,
shit!
Yeah.
I think
a lot of us have.
Like,
I just thought that was interesting. So
yeah.
Well, again, it's like I don't know if like a lot of these stats or whatnot are used, and that's the thing is like I'm like
really
speculating about what's authentic and what isn't, how exactly we are using these numbers. Like, is it for an ideological benefit or are we just ignoring some of the other things? I've always said that with like the lower fertility rate, it's just like an ebb and flow of a developing civilization. So I don't like, especially when right wingers like doom spiral about that all the time. It's kind of like it's gonna pick back up eventually. I really do think. It's just a matter of like the ebb and flow of
I know this
developing and a culture developing.
But
anyways, but that's sort of like what I was trying to get at. Is I think there's like everything with everything is a very complicated situation. It's multifarious. There are multifarious reasons for why something occurs. The way I look at it though is I'm just trying to address it from the ways that I think are the most obvious, and so that's where I'm coming from.
Sure. I mean, so I don't know. I mean, I have I've done more research on immigration than some other topics, but like certainly, like I'll just say, like the evidence I've seen presented in like the at least maybe they're biased, but the economists I've seen suggests that like typically we do associate declining working age populations with slower rates of growth.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's possible, so it could be the case that the overall effect on growth is not very big. And I think that like that. So even if I presume the overall effect on growth is not very big, which I think is unlikely given the I think it's unlikely given some basic tenets of economics that they hold. It would seem to be the case that like immigrants certainly don't have the evidence still points me in the direction immigrants don't have like a lot of these negative concerns that we associate with them, and because like I would still believe that they have other positive effects. Maybe like overall macro GDP growth doesn't increase. But they're really like
apparently non-fun. My goat asks about the false electors here, so I don't know.
Increase it like GDP in general, but they would it's sort of broadly like have some of those spillover benefits I talked about earlier. They could even potentially have national security benefits insofar as they're innovative in sectors that we need them to be innovative in, and lets us compete with China on skilled workers. But like, so I do just want there are things I do like getting specific answers to. So I do just want like a clear answer. So like, do you believe that Trump fired the BLS commissioner because he did not like the job numbers?
Because he did not like the what?
The July jobs report, the payroll report that came out that BLS put out.
Oh, I mean, I
mean, who knows?
I'm not sure about that, frankly. I'm not. I don't know. I haven't thought about that one. And could you provide more context for that one?
Right. Okay. So we had essentially, the BLS is their institution that tracks they're the real labor statistics. They do a lot of surveys to try to track the state of the economy, the data that they produce. Like they produce unemployment rate, they produce something called, they produce some measures of inflation, the consumer price index, CPI. They are a pretty important economic institution. They were they are under the executive branch. They're not a fully independent agency like, for example, the Federal Reserve is, but they are supposed to be politically independent. It's a very strong norm to not partisan, to not have the BLS be partisan. In fact, the reason they were created is sort of, they were created as a compromise between unions and company owners over disputes about how much the inflation had risen and how much wages therefore needed to rise. The solution to that was just an independent statistical agency that would just track that number, so unions could set wage contracts based on that number rather than any like partisan entity. So the July jobs report came out.
Nope.
Now initially, Trump's jobs numbers were not
like
like particularly stellar, but they weren't necessarily bad. And every so the way the job numbers work, every month they revise the 2 previous months' estimates of the amount of jobs added. When the July jobs report came out, Trump like the 2 previous months, not only was July's jobs numbers bad, but the 2 previous months had like pretty heavy downward revisions. Not like not the biggest downward revisions we've seen, but really heavy downward revisions. And then and only then did Trump say, oh, these numbers are fake. The BLS is horrible at its job. I'm firing this woman who's the head of the BLS.
Hold on,
because
I have to kick this bitch ass cat out of my room.
This job report came out and made me look bad. When there's, by the way, no mechanism by which the BLS commissioner can even really change the job numbers because they only see them like even 2 days before they go out. So it's not like she can even really change them without delaying it.
She was the one that was appointed by Biden, right? Previously.
She was appointed by Biden, but again, it's an independent agency. Independent in the sense that it's supposed to be not partisan.
Why are you letting people play
Independent
sound?
under the structure of our constitution.
Why didn't you turn that off?
Sure.
There's no real precedent for politicizing the Fed like the BLS like this. Nixon kind of tried to a little bit. But
we all love Nixon.
Institution that we rely.
I don't know if there's meta in like in drawing Nixon comparisons like way more. Like I don't know if it's stronger to say like, oh, there's no precedence for this, or like, yeah, there's a little bit of precedence for something kind of like this, but not as bad, and it was under Richard Nixon. Like I don't know, there might be a little bit of meta for drawing the Nixon comparisons like that.
On to make impartial data, and Trump is firing someone because he doesn't like that she put out information about the economy not doing as well as Trump would like it to be. I think that's
it's a classic. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of some of his tactics. It's a classic like Trump move, though. That's sort of like what got him. Here's the thing: is that Trump is sort of like I think he's like wrapped in. He's trying to fulfill an image that the image that people voted him as, and
Trump,
whether that he really is that image or he isn't, I'm not really concerned with. But it seems like a classic Trump move. I don't know I just looked it up, and it sounds like vaguely familiar. So forgive me for not being like completely well read on this, but I do remember she was Biden appointed. That being said, I'm not saying that what was those that report was posed was completely biased. But at the same time, I mean, it's not uncommon or unknown to say that a large portion of these these organizations were filled with people, because you have to understand a large part of the GOP is opposed to what Trump was trying to do. And I'm not here to completely defend Trump, but I would say personally, I don't think that was a good move on his part because it does look bad. There's a lot of things that I've not.
This is I can't tell, man. The problem is that people will. This is a realization that I'm starting to come to, and this is why I'm gonna try not to be as like hyper aggro in a lot of these debates, even when met with like terrible bad faith, because I'm starting to kind of come to the realization that I think people are inherently like, sometimes when they're actually caught, they're bad faith without even realizing it, and they like will do bad faith tactics subconsciously, and it's not because they're trying to win a debate or whatever. It's just because like I don't think they want to accept that their worldview is wrong, so they will be bad faith in conversations. I think this is one of those examples where I don't think she's arguing in bad faith here, but like the instant, like, I don't know a lot about that, but then laying all of the groundwork as to why it's good without knowing any of the facts. So you can't be actually fact checked, because you're going to be like, oh, well, I said I didn't know right at the beginning. But then you still ultimately make the defense of Donald Trump, where it's like, I said I didn't know at the outset, but I suspect that it was bias. Yeah. Dylan! Holy fuck, Dylan Blay, how's it going? It's funny, I was just talking about you earlier. That's funny. Yeah, I don't know. So I'm gonna start being like a little less hyper aggro about like bad faith tactics because I think it's just I think it's unintentional actually. Because I don't think she's doing like debate tactics here. But like that's an absolutely like that's a if she were, that's exactly what I would expect her to say. So
talked on Trump lately because I think that he's been sort of taking some L's lately in some of the even just like optically speaking. But at the same time, I don't think that was a good move.
What? Yeah, I sent a couple of my buddies your debate with infrared because they were talking about infrared.
Same time, I wouldn't be shocked if they were trying to like fudge the numbers a little bit in that report to make it look a particular way. But at the same time, I don't have evidence for that, so I can't say that. Given that she was Biden appointed, but
what
I
did
wouldn't
you say about me? I just said check out. I said they were talking about it was the 2v2 with Hinkle, Destiny, Dylan Burns and Infrared, and I was like, oh yeah, a while ago I had a buddy that debated Infrared, and they just both screamed at each other like apes. So that's what I said.
There, no.
Okay, I mean, to be fair, you said you didn't have evidence, but I don't think the fact that she was Biden appointed means very much. But I want to talk about someone Trump appointed. Have you kept up with any of the stuff between Trump and Jerome Powell and the Federal Reserve at all?
Oh, the stuff that just he's trying to get rid of the president of the Federal Reserve, correct? Is that what you're referring to?
Kinda, yeah. So he did recently, fire one of the governors, not the president, but one of the people on the committee.
Governor, yeah, governor.
Yeah, but he has publicly lambasted Jerome Powell both in his first term and especially now in his second term, literally going to
where's
the,
my preemptive strike
renovation and trying to
advise
about how bad it is.
It's not a new.
And publicly asking Jerome Powell to lower interest rates,
which is biggest what if. True.
Not only historically has very little precedent, but is very concerning given that the Fed is a independent agency under the structure of our Constitution, right? That is very much supposed to be independent. The Fed chairman is not supposed to listen to the president. The president is not supposed to give orders to the Federal Reserve chairman, and the consequences of doing so, I would say, are especially in combination with the BLS stuff and the tariff stuff, which we'll get to as well, are most certainly going to be more damaging than any damage.
Well, it's good to see your name in chat. All right, it's been a while. I was wondering how you've been doing. I think about the little group. All right, I think about Tenflix. I think about Looter. I think about Clock Guy. I think about everybody. I miss that little group. I miss the little group, especially since I was a fucking idiot back then. So now I could actually engage in conversations with people like that. Oh, to have the connections that I did when I was 16. 17. I don't remember.
So I was Jerome Powell. Yeah. I don't know too much about the story. I did hear a little bit about the what was the other person's name I'm thinking of? There was a lady that was accused of.
Lisa Cook, I think.
Yeah, that was the one. That's what I was thinking of. I know a little bit about that story. I don't know anything about Jerome Powell though.
I mean, he's the chairman of the Federal Reserve, so I guess it's totally fine.
No, I'm still an idiot. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I'm still an idiot. I'm just not 16, but. Yeah, I don't know. Big still stops it every once in a while too, which is cool. I just talked to Tenflix last night. Apparently he's an admin for Wick. That's crazy.
All these things, right? And I do want to ask you in a second, what
I would have been a cash cow then, I'm washed now. Or I would have been a cash cow then, now I'm washed. Why are you washed? I mean, I know you don't make shit anymore. I think, do you still do music or are you just fully offline?
But what your big issues are. Because I do just okay. Did you? I don't actually know.
I'm not even listening to Non-Fun right now. I'm sorry. I'm locked out. I mean, it's kind of hard to actually have anything constructive to say when she's actually doing well, I don't know anything about it, but I bet it was base. I don't know what to say about that. I haven't kept up with any of it though. Oh, that's sad. No, I make music. I'm working on a studio album. Oh, fire! Let's go. Well, so I mean, you're still doing shit. W. How the fuck? That's fine. I'm just letting it go. How did I not get enough pops for this fucking monkey? Respect to Non-Fun. He sold because he let her do the thing where she glides the conversation away from the agreed upon topic. The problem is, though, is that I don't even know what the agreed upon topic was. I'm going to ask Non-Fun after this. I'm going to hop on his stream. I don't even know what they agreed to talk about, so I don't know if he did do that or not. Because if he just said like, yeah, you know, I want to have a conversation about, you know, this, and this, or I just want to have like a kind of chill conversation about this, like letting her walk off of the topic is kind of easier because this isn't like a harsh debate, you know, and you want to keep like ties intact. I get that. And if that's the case, then I'm not going to like harp on Nonfon super hard about that, but one where he doesn't look good. Did he talk about a topic that he didn't? I thought he handled most of these topics pretty decent. She optimogged him. Which one? What topic?
Voting for Trump.
I did in the last
If it was
election,
this
yes.
one,
Okay.
then.
Yeah, so we'll get that in a second. But you know, let's just say like, do we accept the fact that the Fed is supposed to be an independent institution that is not supposed to follow the president's orders?
Yeah, that's what it's supposed to be. Yeah, the Fed's
Okay.
a lot of things, but that's what it's supposed to be.
Sure. And do we like
2%
generally think that
plus.
like even if you support an interest rate cut, which I don't know how much you know about this, but like do we just like generally think that probably giving the president substantial authority over decisions over interest rates when we just kind of generally have evidence that independent central banks probably lead to lower, more stable inflation and growth, or sorry, essentially more stable growth and lower inflation, that would probably just be a bad thing? Oh, shoot, you're frozen on my end. I don't know if
Internet.
um,
This is a debate tactic,
I'm still
but this is a
frozen. I don't know.
debate tactic too.
think
He
that's
unplugged the
The rest of my stuff is working still. I think
the
I'm doing
Ethernet.
right.
Most of that last spiel about birth rates and increasing the workforce output and whatnot. Oh well, I mean, I don't know. Maybe, but I don't even know. I'd kind of have to watch back. I've only been like kind of half locked in. I'm not gonna lie to you, but I don't think that Nonfon looked that optically bad there. I feel like he had substantive pushback on all of it. I think he did decently well to break the correlation between birth rates and multiculturalism. And if you break that tie, then you know the tie back to immigration doesn't really matter. I don't know. I feel like Nonfon did pretty decent there. I don't know.
Internet that OBS will be cutting out too, I think.
Maybe I'm just a glazer, all right? I'm friends with Nonfon, so I don't know. Maybe I'm just a glazer.
Tactic. True. Good? Question mark. I don't know. I'll try refreshing it, but I don't know if that kind of breaks the meeting.
I feel like these two people are so juxtaposed ideologically that she can't let her dog walk him around to where she wants to go. Yeah, true, generally, but the problem is that it's also really super hard to avoid that kind of happening because in order to fight that, you're going to have to be kind of aggressive in doing it. And I don't think that's the kind of conversation that this person signed up for. And I don't think that's the kind of conversation that Nonfon told her it would be. So if he came off super aggressive in this conversation, which I think was framed as pretty casual, I think it would have been a little not great looking for Nonfon.
No one else is in this meeting. Oh, she's gone. Couldn't even shrimp pillar. I was shrimp pillar before she leaves. I did mention I was doing a shrimp subathon when she
Bro.
said she loved shrimp, but I didn't white shrimp pillar. Didn't give her the speed.
Grow faster. Jesus.
I'm assuming internet just like almost totally cut out or something. Anyways, how you doing, chat? Pounds, Elphimer.
Shut up, Nonfon. No, I'm kidding. I love Nonfon. Yeah, she was gone for a while. Yeah, get the shrimp costume on.
Oh,
The shrimp
nice.
Fire.
You're in your shrimp costume.
Yeah, I made it a donation incentive. People donate some money to
Oh,
the shrimp welfare
nice.
project.
Nice. Yeah, I don't know what happened. The Wi-Fi just like completely cut out. Sorry about that.
No, you're good. I do want to hold on just real quick because
Mhm.
because now that I'm in my shrimp costume, all right?
Okay.
I want to briefly espouse, okay, the glory of the shrimp welfare project to you. Okay?
Maybe not aggressive, but he could confirm his stances a little harder, and not just that. Half of reaching out to a new audience is subtly taking the floor to explain in detail your views. You get directed where to go by somebody else. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
when people donate, okay, for me to put my shrimp costume on in embarrassing moments like this, not only do they get to watch me suffer, all right, they get to save shrimp from a very painful death. So typically, like the way shrimp are killed on farms, it's like very stressful, very painful. They're essentially like buried alive in ice and left to like freeze and suffocate to death over the span of 20 minutes. There's also a lot of cruel practices, like on the farms. For example, like female shrimp will have their live female shrimp will have their eyes ripped out or crushed to make them artificially more fertile, which is not only stressful, painful for the female shrimp, but also tends to make their offsprings like disproportionately have disabilities and like worse lives. The Shrimp Welfare Project works to end a lot of those practices. So, the biggest thing they do is, to make them avoid that painful, horrible death, they give farmers electrical stunning machines, which kill shrimp instantly and painlessly. And essentially, a single dollar will end up helping about 15,000 shrimp avoid a very painful death over the course of the next 15 years. All right. So it's a very, very good, highly effective charity. Okay. Would recommend. I don't know how interested you are in that, but.
I'll have to check it out. I didn't know any of that. That's you don't eat shrimp, do you?
Well, no, I don't. But I think you can eat shrimp and pay some reparations to the Shrimp Welfare Project if you do, obviously. Yeah. So I guess so we were talking about Jerome Powell. I think you were responding at the time. So if you have any thoughts on that, I want to let you respond.
Yeah. If so, I don't know the story specifically of what happened with Jerome Powell. I was following what happened with Lisa Cook. But to answer your question, I think you were just like asking me about you were cut off like from the beginning, but you're asking me if I think that the president should interfere with some of the decision making.
I may not be in this game anymore, but I'll never forget how it's played. True.
Processes involved with the Federal Reserve.
Basically, yeah. I'm asking do we think that's just kind of a pretty bad thing if the president is publicly trying to interfere with the Fed?
Yeah, I think that's a concern. Absolutely. I don't think I have my own thoughts about the Fed existing at all. But yeah, I wouldn't say that he should interfere with that.
Okay, I appreciate it. So I appreciate that. All right. So I do want to ask, because you voted for Trump, what were the big issues, or what were the things that made you like Trump? What were the things that maybe you didn't like about the left that drove you to support Trump in the election?
Yeah, sure. Well, Donald Trump, obviously, not my favorite, but I do think that he was a better alternative than what we had, especially the switch that happened from Biden to Kamala, I thought was questionable. But that wasn't like one of my major drawbacks. I just thought that was concerning. But yeah, with all the other main things that I mentioned, specifically in regards to immigration, I think that addressing that is a good way, and at least trying to reinstate some of our national integrity and our national economic vitality. I think that was a big issue, specifically since that's what he originally.
Oh, fuck. Okay. This is the question that should have been asked right at... Okay, actually, I do kind of fault Non-Fun for the lack of organization for this conversation, because I feel like that should have been the very first question. If she's saying that she voted for Donald Trump to handle immigration, all of this previous conversation was fucking useless, because Donald Trump doesn't want to do any of this. Donald Trump doesn't give a fuck about anything that she just talked about throughout the entire goddamn conversation. Donald Trump doesn't give a fuck about declining birth rates. Stephen Miller does, but... Donald Trump doesn't give a fuck, and he's not even going to do anything. He's just going to be deporting people.
Ran his platform on, but there was like a whole host of other issues. Like for instance, some of his you can say some of his reforms in regards to like some of the programs that were implemented within the government structure, specifically with like the DEI programs. When he first came into office, I supported quite a bit, and sort of like trying to mollify the culture surrounding that with what right wingers try to typically say is like the DEIification of some of these things in like our culture. But I think his so that was another big factor. His position in office is, I think, reflective a lot of what Americans are feeling as a general sentiment in how they want to address the direction of where the country is going. And I think, Trump sort of being an avatar for that is the best option that I had at the time. But so there's like a cultural element as well. There's immigration element. I'm not a big fan of what he's done with the tariffs. Personally, I was never like supportive of that personally. But I would say like that was the main ones.
Sure. I guess
yeah.
The main reason you voted for Donald Trump is immigration, when your views on immigration are not mirrored by the administration that you just voted for. Help. Yeah, she needs to get cleaned for her grift and willful ignorance towards Trump's actual incentive for mass deportations. I don't know. Yeah, true. I agree. This refers to, I think it was Tron that said it. It was like, or no, it was David. I think it's too far up in the chat for me to scroll up. It's like, yeah, it's either, if you're a Trump supporter, you fall into one of two categories. It's either A, you're unhinged and you're fucking insane, or B, you're actually fairly reasonable and have decent policy positions, and it's just incomprehensible how you thought Donald Trump was the right answer. That's super true. Like, I don't understand how you could just have that conversation with Non-Fun and still come out of it thinking that Donald Trump has your best interest in mind on this topic.
Starting on the first thing, the way Kamala getting into the questionable way. So, I mean, for one, I don't for one, like, would you like if the Democrats had an open primary? Would there have been any candidate that like could have won that you would have voted for? I'm curious.
No, well, I mean, the way that they just switched Biden with Kamala, I just thought that was weird. But I mean, personally, I wouldn't. No, not. I hadn't voted for like a Democrat for a while,
Oh
so
my
I
God.
wouldn't. I would say supporting of them. But
Do you think
Kind of weird. That's why non-fawn brought up the electors. Oh, non-fawn, my goat. Bringing up the electors, my goat.
I think it's also weird that like Trump was coordinating with a bunch of people in like all the swing states to decide fake slates of electors and tried to get Mike Pence to unilaterally essentially send the votes back to the state to try to get the uncertified electors certified after January 6th to overturn the election. Do we think that's also a little weird?
yeah,
Nah.
well, the situation surrounding January 6th, I think, was also concerning, most definitely.
It's a little unique. little unique on Donald Trump's end. The stuff with J6, yeah.
And again, I'm not like a big proponent or fan of Trump. I'm not like. I don't like to position myself as someone that completely supports everything Trump does. At the end of the day, deciding between the two candidates, between Kamala or Trump, wasn't, I think, agreeing with a lot of people here in this one, that wasn't like the best two options I had there. But I did vote for him simply because I thought he was the best alternative at the time. I mean, I think that we could have had
Substantiate it.
perhaps,
Why?
better contenders, but obviously that's what the GOP and what conservative people wanted in the United States. And I just felt like, judging by some of the policies that he was proposing, regardless of what January 6th was, which I never like supported, judging by all that, I just simply thought he was a better alternative.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess it's it is very like weird to me that we would count essentially Kamala Harris becoming the Democratic candidate. That's a big negative against the Democratic Party, like the way she came in. Like I don't like the way she came in, right? But,
Donald Trump was indicted
fundamentally,
for
that
trying
is
to steal the
DNC is a
election.
private institution. The DNC not break any laws by doing that. The DNC was not like substantially threatening the future of American democracy. I think if we are to count that as a negative against the Democrats, it should be weighted like a million times more heavily that Donald Trump Donald Trump himself probably did violate multiple laws, but Donald Trump, the people he organized with, violated multiple laws. They were planning on violating the Electoral Count Act. All the state electors violated various laws, and that's why half of them went to prison. That's why half of them were pleaded guilty to their shit. Like they didn't even contest it, and this would have been literally overturning the results of the election if it was successful. And one of the big reasons why it wasn't successful is just because Mike Pence refused to go along with it, and for whatever. I would also add all of this was based on lies about the 2020 election being stolen. Most of the people involved in this plot have admitted, even they knew they were lying at the time. We Fox paid out a huge settlement, right? We had the text messages with Tucker Carlson and everyone is saying they knowingly lied about the Dominion voting stuff. We have, I think, Rudy Giuliani saying he was lying, but he just has a First Amendment right to lie about the 2020 election. And I think that the lies alone were damaging.
Lil Bro read the
American democracy.
Substack.
People still don't believe the results of the 2020 election, and then that was used in an attempt to literally try to overturn the results of a free and fair election. And the Democrats switching out their candidate, especially when historically primaries were probably even less open up until the 70s than what we had in 2024. There's almost no comparison between these two things to me.
Well, just judging by the way that they attack Trump and just Republicans in general for not defending the tenets of democracy, I just thought that was ironic that they decided to follow through with that decision, especially since
No, it's not ironic.
Anyway,
it's not ironic. What they did was not illegal. Donald Trump. What Donald Trump did was illegal. Also, this is a super important thing that no one ever points out. Donald Trump tried to interfere with the general election, not the primary. The primary, you could do whatever the fuck you want to because people can just vote against it, okay? Donald Trump tried to remove the votes, the actual already cast votes. But, I mean, fuck it. I don't know.
Initially, if he was showing signs of decline, but then to just decide to do that, I thought was rather odd. And then but then again, that's politics, right? You're going to make claims and then do the other. So yeah, but the entire situation I just felt like was concerning, given especially what Democrats have been touting ever since January 6th. Was a bit I would say what's the term I'm looking for? It's just it was just very deceptive. So. But yeah, that's
what
just thinking about it.
What were the deceptive things that Democrats did after January 6th? I don't
Thank you.
Well, it was deceptive when they were using that as sort of a cudgel to beat over the heads of Republicans.
This is actually fucking. She's not this stupid. The difference is so clear. What is this? Well, okay. The answer is she wanted a quick little gotcha line, and she wanted a quick little gotcha line, and non-fun called her out on it. That's what happened. But fuck, man. For the remaining years of Biden's presidency up until he had to run again, and then when they decided to do that with Kamala, they just sort of ignored that, or they didn't talk about that.
But, one of these was a plan, a month-long plan, spanning multiple states like trying to get fake slates of electors in violation of multiple laws to try to overturn the results of a free and fair like presidential election in the U.S. And one of them was like last minute switching out the primary candidate, in accordance with every law, in accordance with the DNC charter, when the DNC is a private organization, has it's not
She's obviously doing this on purpose. I don't even know. I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know. I genuinely think that there's so much, like, genuinely, the amount of bad faith that Republicans engage in make me think that it's not intentional. I don't know. There's just a part of my brain that refuses to believe that Republicans are like being bad faith for what? Why? Why are we doing these bad faith arguments for what?
Government is obviously it was not violating the Constitution. I think
very
it's very likely that
moving the
violated,
goalposts. Very 2020.
The U.S. Constitution itself. It certainly violated several state constitutions to elect some of the false slates of electors, at least. Like one of these is like a very like fundamental threat to me. The other one of them, like even if you want to say it's ironic, is just like so should be so not heavily weighted at all. At least when it comes to your decision to vote.
But I mean, Democrats, you guys would understand, like you were touting the idea as a concept. That was like a principle. It wasn't necessarily one of the. It's not like you guys were opposed to Trump, what he was doing in January 6th, simply for the systems he had found himself in. I would presume you guys would defend democracy as a principle, right?
As a general,
democracy was not uprooted by replacing the primary candidate. You could just not vote. You could just not vote for Kamala Harris. Donald Trump was trying to rob the people of the right to not vote for him in 7 states. He tried to change the results of the election in 7 targeted states. There was no robbing of democracy for in 2024. You could have just don't vote for her. Holy fuck.
Well, yeah, democracy is good, but it's especially good when it's in the government, right? Like one of these is gonna have like way more consequences.
This is the fire answer. Okay, like if you disapprove of what happened in the DNC, what can you do? Oh, well, you could just vote for the Republicans. You could stay home. You could vote third party. What are the voters to do if Donald Trump changes the already cast electoral count, the electoral ballot? What do you do? Who knows? This would be a very good short stream. Every time I do a short stream, the viewership is actually worse because it fucks the quality of all of the other streams. So it just doesn't seem worth it.
Yeah, I think a democratic government is a good principle, and I think the reason democracy in political parties is usually a good principle too is because they do have obviously substantial interactions with the government.
I'm yelling.
Or running the politicians and whatever. But I don't think democracy is always good. Like I think it was. I wish Biden never ran for second term in the first place. But like I think it was a net good thing that Biden eventually got pushed out essentially. And like Kamala ran. I think she probably gave us a better chance, although maybe she Biden didn't run in the first place. She wouldn't have had to carry some of the weight I think associated with that. I just like there's no when I say like democracy is good and like Trump substantially threatens American democracy, there's no commitment from that statement to say democracy is always good even in private organizations. And there's certainly no commitment towards saying like even if both candidates have done like slightly undemocratic things or whatever, or if one candidate has done like a slightly undemocratic thing in accordance with the laws in the book, in accordance with the DNC charter, and the other candidate like broke the law trying to overturn the results of an election.
True, not all violations of democracy are built the same. If you're interfering with the final stage of a democratic process, that's substantially different than if you vote on the people who are going to be in the primary, or if you vote to vote in the people, like you vote to see who should be on the ballot for the primaries, and then you should vote for who should be in contention to be voted for to be on the ballot. Like, we don't need to walk back all of those. And the nature of not having like 5 levels of removed in order to determine who should be on the ballot is not, they're not built the same. And it's obvious. It's incredibly obvious. I don't know, man. You should let me join the stream. After we're done watching the video, you can, yeah. I was planning on doing a little open call anyway.
A federal election.
I was thinking about even playing Peggle for old time's sake.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think both parties are kind of screwed up, honestly. I think, and I do predict that the GOP is going to split soon. I don't know what the future of the Democrats is. The Democrats, you guys, I mean, you're a Democrat, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, I mean, I call myself a Democrat, yeah.
Just don't stream on Twitch.
Like, I think you guys probably will stay put together for a little while.
Way
the GOP
easier to
is at its
stream
last
on
legs
Twitch.
here, I think. And Trump did fundamentally change the GOP and the Republican Party ever since he first ran in 2016. Whether that's for bad or for good, I think there remains to be
join
seen.
the Discord.
Considering that I think the Republican Party was going to be quite ineffective if he hadn't come along anyway. But as far as like the events of what surrounded January 6th, is like as far as I can remember, I mean, personally, when I was following it along, I hadn't I hadn't agreed with what he had done there. Now, granted, I do live in a state where we already have like mail-in voting, and I didn't look into it. I personally heard people that
Oh
saw
my
some things
God.
and experienced some things.
It's the same. I don't know a lot about it. I didn't really look into it, but mail-in voting was kind of corrupt. Like, stop saying you didn't look into it and then give the defense that Donald Trump gives for himself. Stop.
Their home states, and I didn't get into it at the time, but the way that he went about it, specifically was, yeah, well, specifically with
legal plan.
With the way they're trying to investigate it with his own team. Now, I don't. I mean,
his own
in terms
team.
of,
What are we saying? His own team. Trump, like, looked around for people to agree with him, right? Like like Mike Pence was, a member of his own team. There were multiple like, people he consulted about claims to election fraud. They all said there's no outcome determinative of election fraud. It was only the crackpot lawyers he could find, Kenneth Chesebro and like John Eastman, who had any agreement with him. And like even John Eastman said like this plan is like get shot down 9-0 in the Supreme Court, right? So like it's weird to say he contested it. Like there are legal mechanisms for contesting elections, some of which like Trump tried to exhaust with the lawsuits he did and lost all but one of.
True, and then when every legal route to contest the election failed, he tried to steal it. Yes, true. I told you she knows what she's doing, but even then, like I don't know if she came into this conversation expecting to be dishonest. It's one thing. Also, like dishonesty can be broken down into points. Like it's possible that she made a one-off claim that she wasn't ready to defend. She wasn't expecting to defend it. She came here expecting to defend A, B, C, and D, and she kind of like threw a pock shot in for E, and then non-font stuck on E, and then she's being bad faith to defend E to save face, but that doesn't mean that she was being bad faith on A through D, you know? Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't even say this is a violation of democracy. They voted for Biden, and if Biden got sick or hurt, Harris would take over. That's the whole point of the vice president. I mean, yes, true. But, I mean, well, I mean, it's probably a violation of democracy just in the sense that, well, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I guess that's true. I don't know.
Like
Sure.
Even trying to like for example, like the Georgia state legislator like watched one of the videos that supposedly showed election fraud that it's actually like a spliced video that OAN lied about. Like there were legal things Trump did to try to contest the election, but then after like you run out of legal avenues, you have to respect the results of the election. You should not be doing a months-long plan to try to overturn the legitimate results. Like that's insane.
Yeah, no, the events of that election was weird, and not just because of like the weird count thing that happened. And there was one state in particular. I think it was Wisconsin, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but anyway. But the way that he went about it,
Wait,
I didn't.
what did she say?
Sure.
And to try to overturn the legitimate results. Like that's insane.
Yeah, no, the events of that election was weird, and not just because of like the weird count thing that happened. And there was one state in particular. I think it was Wisconsin, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but anyway.
Dude, I want to fucking rip my head in half. Stop. Okay, that just told me. Okay, she's sowing the doubt for it to be acceptable. She's literally, I think she might actually be doing the debate strategy thing now. I don't know where she's doing like I don't know a lot about that, but here's every defense that Donald Trump gives of himself, and you can't really push back against it because I don't really know a lot about it. But here's defense A, defense B, defense C, defense D. Oh my God.
But the way that he went about it, I didn't agree with ever. So, but I think like strategically speaking, in terms of like the legitimacy of the GOP in general, following after that, I wouldn't say it was like the most feasible for helping the Republican Party. Now, I do have my own theories about why Trump would maybe want to like tear the GOP apart after him. But in which that's probably what he attempted to do with that as well. Sort of like burn the party down before, especially seeing how he may not have been reelected at that point. But regardless of that, I think there is like evidence to say that election integrity, particularly with states where there is already mail-in voting, can be questionable. And I don't think it's like I would not like put it past people in positions of power over those states to try to utilize it for their benefit too, though. So again, and that's like coming from someone that already lives in a state that we already have these systems of voting for a long time now. And that being said, like I wouldn't put it past the Democrats doing the same thing. And when they did that with Kamala and Biden, granted, you mentioned like the DNC, it's its own institution.
They did nothing like that. Like again, this is a plan that violates like the laws we have in the book with regards to how we certify a federal election versus the Democrats' plan, which is not only compliant with the laws but compliant with the private rules of the private DNC company. Like this is a insane comparison. And like I do just want to say like all these claims of election fraud or whatever like were investigated by Trump himself's team. Like like Mike Pence was on a commission trying to find election fraud. Like again, there were multiple states that that like looked into all these claims that Trump is making. Trump filed a ton of lawsuits, or like Rudy Giuliani and another lawyer filed a bunch of lawsuits on behalf of Trump in a bunch of different states. Like all of them lost except for one in Pennsylvania, and even if most of them won, it would not have been enough fraud accusing those lawsuits to actually change the results of the election. So like I don't know, like it seems very I don't know what the right word is. It's very confusing to me, like why we
disgusting, gross,
like run
vile.
What I would say is like so much defense for the actions of something that like should like very clearly be not just like bad, but like one of the worst things a president has done in recent American history, like in terms of the threat to our institutions.
Okay. She seems honest for like
hello,
30
can you hear me now?
minutes, and it's the 15 that she's not that are the insane ones that need to be pushed back on. Yeah, I agree. She's saying E to make it more palatable. Yeah.
Your camera's still frozen though. But...
Is that still frozen? Okay, hold on. Oh, is it moving now?
Yep.
Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. I don't know what's happening with the internet connection here.
Mm-hmm.
I did only have an hour though. Looks like I'm 25 minutes past almost.
Sure.
I do have like another online interview soon
Mm-hmm.
here. But I do appreciate you for letting me come on today.
Yeah, shout yourself out to your audience if you want to, and yeah, I'm sure we'll chat again. I know you moderate a lot of some debates now, so yeah.
Yes, I do. We are already having a debate panel on the show now. But my show is titled, it's called Culturama. Like I said, it streams on Rumble and other major streaming platforms every Tuesday and Thursday, and sometimes on Saturdays I do gaming. Or if you want to read some of my writing, you can also find it at the Dialectic Project on Substack.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you coming on. Like I said, sure we'll chat again sometime.
Absolutely.
Donate to the Shrimp Welfare Project, okay? Donate to the Shrimp Welfare Project. Hell yeah. Yep.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
You too.
Okay. I just feel bad. Like, there's no way that every conversation with a conservative is bad faith. I just can't believe that. I don't know, man.
One off in victory.
Okay. I wasn't paying attention. Sorry. I was locked out. A little excited for this open call. Well, let me talk to Non-Fun real quick.
Oh, what's up?
I just finished watching the debate.
Yeah. What you think?
So, okay. Just because it was the end of it, and it's what's most in my mind. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like every conservative is bad faith. Why do you think that is?
I don't know.
Like, did you perceive bad faith
feels
in that conversation?
It's hard to like. It might depend on your definition of bad faith. So I think like near the end, I think obviously we were talking about like January 6th or whatever. So like I think it might just be like in the moment, like no one is ever going to even like sort of like really think through some of the things that they're saying, or like even if they recognize like what they're saying is kind of stupid, they might just want to like save face a little in the debate or whatever. So one, it could be that. Two, like it could just be but that might be bad faith to an extent, but it's not bad faith in that like you're purposefully lying and you know that you're lying from the start. But
because
I don't know. I mean, I think if like truly like if they just recognize the facts or whatever, like it would entail that like they probably just should not vote for who they voted for, and people don't want to deal with that.
There was like I'm having a problem right now where it feels like every time I watch a conservative talk about something that I'm like half aware of, it just feels like the most bad faith thing in the world. Like one of the biggest red flag things that she would do is like you would bring up a coherent point and then she would be like, well, I don't know a lot about that, but I'm pretty sure that like this justifying thing was going on and this justifying thing was going on. But then if you push back on any of those justifications, she'll just say she doesn't know.
Yeah.
With the electors, she was like, oh, I don't know a whole lot about the stuff that happened around January 6th, but I know there was some like weird stuff happening in Wisconsin's election. It's like, no, I don't know. She did it with one of the other topics. I just don't remember. Yeah, the actual like the main part of it towards the beginning was fine. I mean, like the only one thing that I would say is that like what did you tell her the conversation was going to be about?
I said probably mostly immigration, but also just how we think Trump is doing generally.
Okay. I think you at the beginning you should have asked why she voted for Donald Trump, because I noticed that I was going into with the impression that it was like Donald Trump as it regards to immigration and not just immigration solutions and policy in general. And she was making like a lot of decent points or like decent observations about like what we could do to better the country or whatever. But if you're having that conversation in regards to Donald Trump, it has to be pointed out that Donald Trump supports like almost nothing, or like is like almost nothing that she was bringing up is on Donald Trump's radar. That's not why Donald Trump is doing it. The reason that Donald Trump is doing his immigration stuff is because Stephen Miller's telling him that like brown people are bad, and he just agrees. Like,
yeah.
So I think that was like during the main part, that was the biggest problem that I had, was just that like everything that she was talking about, if it was in regard to Donald Trump, she's gonna be really fucking disappointed by the end of these 4 years. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, I don't think I've been toying around with this because like if there's no shot that like 50% of the country is just always arguing in bad faith. There's just no shot. Right. I don't know if it's just like
some of them are just uninformed, right? Like some of them.
Yeah, but like even when the facts of the matter are given, they like make it's not even like it's not even like bad facts. It's like bad logic. Like it's like Donald Trump said, you know, we need a complete and total shutdown of Muslims entering the country. Is that Islamophobic? And they're like, well, you know, not necessarily. There could be this. It's like, no. Like I don't, you don't believe that, you know, like there's no shot that you believe that.
Right.
Like we can have the same facts. It's like your brain is turning off. I had this, I don't know how much time you have, by the way, so I don't want to talk your ear off.
I have all the time in the world. Don't worry.
I had this theory that, that what it is, and I was writing a Substack about it, but I abandoned it, but I think it might be time to bring it up because I was also listening to my boss talk about politics. I had noticed this too. I think a big part of it is that people just presuppose that all of the leaders of our political parties are to be taken seriously, and that's just like a core belief.
Mm-hmm.
And when there's like the most non-serious, non-defendable president in the world leading the free world, it's just like unbelievable, and they can't conceive of that being the case. So they have to presuppose that both sides are equal and that the president is a serious person, and whatever contradicts that assumption can't be true. And there's no world where they can assume that it's true, even if it is. That's my guess.
Mm-hmm.
But
I mean, you see all the time, people will be like, you really think Trump is like just evil? Like, you really think Trump is like just stupid? Or like, you know, you really think Trump would like just do that? He doesn't have reasons or whatever. It's like, yeah, I think a lot of people are kind of like that. Yeah, yeah.
Or like, I was watching one of the dudes that watched me went on after Wise Guy debated Destiny, to do like post game with him, and fuck, like Wise Guy kept bringing up like, oh, you know, the media just like targeted Donald Trump and like all of this was unreasonable, but he doesn't know any of the reasons why any of these unfavorable stories were posted about Donald Trump. Like the biggest one that people point to is 2016, and he got fucking, that's what he debated Destiny on. Like you don't know if he was unfairly targeted. If he was fairly targeted, then that's fine, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But there's just a perception that he was unfairly targeted because I don't think that they can accept that Donald Trump is this, so they just kind of have to like almost fit like the circle in the square hole to justify it, you know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
I don't know though. It's fucking crazy. Like every conversation feels like it. But it also might just be because like the two things that I'm like super super locked into, like that I know like a lot of like snap knowledge on is like J6 and the AEA deportations. I view these as like wholly 1000% indefensible things. So like any defense that somebody gives to me just feels super bad faith.
Yeah.
Because I view them as like wholly indefensible. Like even when I had that Twitter exchange with Average Debate Enjoyer, I don't know what the consensus is on him right now, but God, like living in a world where you concede that the vice president just has the power to choose the valid electors, and that like the vice president basically can just choose who's president. That's fucking nutty. That's crazy. How can you say that with a straight face?
What the founders intended, bro. It's what they wanted. You don't know.
Yeah, Kamala Harris could have just like, I don't know why
Yeah, I know,
Kamala
it's
Harris like bothered fucking campaigning at all, when she could just be like,
I know,
oh fuck, I don't, you know, I think there was fraud. No one else backed me up, but who the fuck cares? All right, these electors are decertified. Go cry me a river, Congress. I don't know, man.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah,
anyway.
like it's the, you know, really bad combination of lack of knowledge and like lack of humility. Like, you know, the fact that, you know, Mr. Wise Guy doesn't know anything about Roger Stone, but then it's like willing to debate Destiny, and then it's also willing to like say Trump was also unfairly targeted by the media. It's like, okay, how can he be so certain? How can he be so confident he was targeted by the media? How can he be so confident like enough to debate Destiny when you don't like even know
Right.
like some of the basic?
That's something that
basic things.
I want to hit on that really hard now going into it. Is just like demanding humility almost, where it's like, hey, listen, you know, I'm going to be nice. All right. If you just want to say, I didn't know that and leave, that's fine. We can do that. Like, there's no shame in that. All right. I'll respect you like a billion times more than any of the dumb fucks who try to defend it, even though they don't know anything about it. So like, it's fine to just say, hey, I was wrong on that. That was my bad. And then just move on. I'm going to try and like super promote that. I think that's fire, but
yeah,
you know, it's online, so if you say you're wrong once on anything, then your career's over. But
this is true. Yep.
All right, well, I love you, buddy.
Yep. Love you too. Have fun with the rest of your stream.
Oh, I'll try my damnedest.
Are you gonna do TikTok debates or something? Are you?
No, I don't think I can handle them right now. My day's been too shitty for that. Oh, I'm just gonna fucking scream at people.
Understandable. Valid.